In this video, we're going to look at phrase searches and wildcards in artful text. And these are just some little tricks that you can use to be a bit more specific with the database to tell it exactly what words you're looking for. We'll start with phrase searches. Now, artful text is actually pretty good at working out what it is you want. If I put in botanical illustration, for example, you'll note that while it's picking up botanical and illustration in different parts of the text, it is being a bit clever and it's using the subject headings to kind of work out, okay, they're after maybe the phrase botanical illustrations. So we're getting a lot of very relevant results here, even though we've not told the database that we're looking for these two words next to each other. But it doesn't work like that with everything. So if I put in association of illustrators, you'll note that we've got 94 results, but not all of these results are talking about the association of illustrators. We've got the association of photographers and illustrators in Canada. We've got some items here where we've got association in one place, but in a completely different context. So actually, a lot of these don't appear to be very relevant at all. If we put phrase marks or speech marks around our phrase, though, with telling the database that we want the words association of illustrators next to each other in this order, so it locks the words together and it will only look for these words when it finds them somewhere together. And we can probably expect that we're not going to get very many results here, but at least we'll get the relevant results. So you can see here that we've only got 19 results, and it is only showing us where we've got association of illustrators next to each other. So we can see here, for example, even though it looks like it's not about the association of illustrators, the person being interviewed does mention the association of illustrators in the text, so that's why that's coming up. When we do a phrase search, we're telling the database that we want something a lot more exact. And because we're telling the database that we want something more exact, it's less likely to look for variants of a word. If I do a phrase search that includes colour, for example, colour theory, what you will note is that it's only bringing us up results that talk about colour theory and spell colour in the exact way that I've spelt colour. And because I've used the UK spelling, it is not bringing us up the American spelling. And if we look at the number of results, 152, I would expect that there would be quite a bit more than this in this database. So what we need to do in a phrase search is we need to account for different spellings of words where there's an American spelling and a UK spelling or similar variants. And that's where the wildcards come in handy. On the whole, there's two kinds of different spellings, aren't there? There's the kind of spelling like colour where there's actually an additional letter, and there's the kind of spelling like organisation where it's one letter but it could be an S or a Z. So you can see here that is one letter that is just changing, and here it's the difference of having no letter or the additional letter. And there are two different wildcards that will deal with the different situations. So for colour, in this database, you would use a hashtag, and that hashtag will stand for no letter or this additional letter. In this example, though, because it's the same letter but it just changes between the S and the Z, you use a question mark, and the question mark indicates there's supposed to be a letter here, but we don't know which letter it is. And what this will do is this will tell the database basically to account for the spelling variation. So if we go back to colour theory having used this hashtag, we should get more results because we should start to include the American spelling of colour. And you can see that that has massively expanded our search, and we now have 988 results. The final type of wildcard that I want to show you today is truncation. And bear in mind, there are quite a few different types of wildcards and tips and tricks you can use, and you can find all of these in the help in Artful Text. But truncation is a really useful one. If we had a phrase, for example, that included the word mythology in it, we might want to retrieve this word as mythology. We might also want to include mythologies in the search. We might want mythological. We might even want myth and myths. But when we are using the phrase search, it's not automatically going to find all of these. So we can use truncation to help us here. If I take off the end of this word and put an asterisk there, this will look for any word that begins mythologic with any ending. So this would bring us mythological, mythologically, and we could also, in this particular instance, it might be a good idea to take it down to myth. Now, this would also bring us things like, mithril, but on the whole, this is going to enable us to bring up myth, mythology, mythologically, mythologies, myths, plural. So this is going to bring us any word that begins myth with any ending, and that could be one letter to make it the plural myths, or it could be a lot of letters to mean mythological. Let's have a quick look at that. Mythology by itself. We've got 10,593 results. Let's take that back to myth. So from 10,593 results to 48,421 results. So you can see as well that what's coming up here, we're getting a lot more of myths, as well as the mythology, etc. So using truncation can really expand your search. It is particularly useful for words such as ology, where there could be different variants of the same word, but with the same beginning. So today we've looked at phrase searches, putting phrase marks around a phrase to ensure it stays together. We've also looked at use of the hashtag and the question mark to account for spelling variants where there is an additional letter or just a change in the letter in that space. We've also looked at truncation that will look for any letters that come after the beginning of a word. And these tricks and tips will help you with your searching to make sure you're just including as many relevant results as possible.